I'm Starborn. Remember, to be a star, you have to shine your own light, follow your own path, and not be afraid of the darkness, because that's when stars shine brightest. If you've been looking at our website, starborninstitute.org, you'd already know that the title of tonight's show is The Road to Recovery. And that is because this show covers the predictions for all of the new moons and the eclipses in 2023. It covers the whole year. And the reason why the show is titled The Road to Recovery is because it's almost not a choice this year for all of us. It's something that we're going to be on. And it can be that the reason we're all going to be on the road to recovery, perhaps at different times and for different reasons, is due to the fact that the world is changing. And so 2023 is going to be a year of ups and downs. And so if we're all responding to a down, then we need to be on the road to recovery to get back up, don't we? And so the year goes through some pretty drastic changes. And one of the first ones is an unusual thing that is occurring in the spring. And it is that between January 23rd and April 21st, there are no retrograde planets, not any. And so that's 3 months in the springtime, and that simply means that it's going to be a very fast-paced spring. You're going to be busy this spring. We all will be. And we'll have to just respond to things in a different way, particularly by the month of March, because by March, planets are going to be changing signs. And remember, there's no retrograde planets, so things are going to move right along in March. And that is because Saturn goes into Pisces, and Pluto goes into Aquarius, and Mars goes into Cancer. And that's just in the month of March. Later on in May, Jupiter will change signs as well and go out of Aries and into Taurus. And so we're going to be experiencing fast-paced changes, and that is why we may need to be on the road to recovery. We may have to adjust a lot to things that we're really not in control of, but which can affect us anyway. And this could even pertain to events on the world stage. So we have to get a little used to that. And then the eclipses this year, there's 2 in the spring and 2 in the fall, and the spring eclipses are in exactly the same signs as they were last year. The 2 fixed financial signs, Scorpio and Taurus. And so we can have see another emphasis on a lot of the financial matters that we were concerned with in 2022. Some of those things are going to sort of come to a head after the spring eclipses, and we'll have to be on the road to recovery for that. And then the thing that we need to really watch out for all year long, and in fact for about the next 2.5 to 3 years, is the fact that not only are major planets changing signs, but one major planet in particular is going to cause us, I think, a lot of grief. And we'll have to readjust to that. And that is because Saturn in March goes into Pisces. And Saturn is not happy in Pisces at all. And so and its stay is generally 2.5 to 3 years. So every time that a planet, another planet in the universe, comes up to a square or an opposition to Saturn and Neptune, because Neptune is the ruler of the sign, it'll be there, that's a good planet. But Saturn is not happy in Pisces. And so every time a planet squares or opposes the sign of Pisces, we are going to be confronted with problems that will require that we get back on the road to recovery. And if it isn't you and me, it might be somebody we know. It might be somebody who is, somebody you would never guess who was addicted to drugs, for instance. And it could be accidental deaths, such as accidents that really were suicides. Because Pisces rules suicide. And it rules insanity. And it rules things that we hide from ourselves, as well as hide from others. And so we're going to have to deal with some problems when planets come up against that Saturn in Pisces, because Saturn represents depression, and in Pisces there could be different outlets for it. There could be a number of people that you would never guess were addicted to drugs because they're taking prescriptions. In other words, they keep getting the prescription renewed, and so it's legal to be addicted to that drug. Do they ever get better? No, but maybe they don't want to because they can keep getting that prescription renewed. So some people are truly ill. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people that doctors will keep writing prescriptions for to treat the patient, not to cure the patient. And in the last big drug scandal that we had a while ago, that's what happened. There were a lot of prescriptions for a drug called Oxycontin, and a lot of people took it and never got off it. And so that is something that a lot of people may need to do. They may need to be on the road to recovery and quit kidding themselves that because they're taking a drug that is prescribed, that they're not addicted, because perhaps they are. And so that's just in drug addiction. It could be that younger people, it could be that there is a lot more mental illness around. Saturn in Pisces would be mental illness. It may be the sign of people who are manic depressive. And we could be seeing that, particularly every time a planet comes up against Saturn and Neptune in Pisces for the next 2.5 to 3 years. So I didn't mean to go on about that. I'm sorry. I guess we worry for our loved ones. And I just hope that that things will get better. But we are going to have to be on the road to recovery, and that means that we are all going to have to take charge of our own peace of mind and our own habits. And we're going to have to maybe change a few of them in order to be healthier. Okay, so we have that caution that's going to be with us for a few more years, actually. And so this turnaround changes a little bit, this recovery changes a little bit during the year, because since it's a year of ups and downs, it means that there can be months that represent a rebound or that represent a turnaround. In other words, something bad could happen, but then we could turn around and have something good happen. And that's why I think it's a year of ups and downs. The fall eclipses are not like, well, one of them is not like the spring eclipses because it's in Libra in the fall in October. But the other fall eclipse is once again in Taurus. That will make the 4th eclipse in Taurus in just 2 years. So money is going to be on everybody's mind this year, and I hope we all just work hard, because the sign of Taurus does represent good hard workers. Okay, so what does this mean to in the month of January? Well, in January, there is a new moon on January 21st, and it is at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And the whole month of January is pretty much all about America, or Canada, or Ukraine, but particularly America, because America's lights are being lit in January. And that's because on January 6th, there is a full moon in Cancer, and Cancer is America's sun sign. And then on January 21st, there is a new moon at 2 degrees of Aquarius. And in America's chart, yes, our sun is in Cancer, but in America's chart, the moon is in Aquarius. And that's where the new moon is on January 21st in Aquarius. So everything that America stands for will be highlighted in the month of January. And that could be rather positive, since both of the full moon and the new moon are aspecting America's lights. And so if America stands for democracy and freedom and independence, it could be highlighted now. And America could take a little stronger lead in trying to solve some of the problems, not only in our own country, but throughout the world. What does it mean in February? In February, on February 20th, there is a new moon at 1 degree of Pisces. And so in the month of February, I would say it's an inspirational month. And that is because Saturn is not in Pisces yet, but the Sun and Moon are, and so is Neptune. That's pretty good. And so it simply means that a delayed dream of yours, perhaps, can come true in February, and that would be very nice. And because at the same time in February, Venus and Jupiter are both in Aries, the sign of new beginnings, it means that a new beginning really gets off the ground very fast and very successfully. That's nice. And so that goes along with being an inspirational month. And then sometime in the month of February, there will be a very swift, almost lightning quick response to some sort of disaster or some malady of some kind. There will be a very fast response to that, and it will be successful, or at least the start of it will be successful. So it might involve some sort of a disaster. It might be something that happens due to an act of nature, but it will be a very fast response to it as well. Okay, what does it mean in March? Well, in March, on March 21st, there's a new moon at 1 degree of Aries. And Aries does rule new beginnings. And so a lot of people can be aspected to be looking for a new beginning in one way or another. And that's good because March is an absolutely loaded month. Remember, I said that in the spring, some major planets change signs, and there are no retrograde planets. So, I mean, everything's going to happen just like clockwork. And that's what occurs in March. In March, Saturn goes into Pisces, and Pluto changes out of Capricorn, finally, and goes into Aquarius. And Mars goes into Cancer. And what that means, since Mars and Saturn are both malefic planets, it means that while they were trining each other in air signs since last August, because Mars was in Gemini and Saturn was in Aquarius, they will shift in March. And now Mars will be in Cancer, and it will be trining Saturn in Pisces. They'll be in water signs now. And so they'll still be trining each other, which is good, particularly for the things that the water signs rule, and the water signs rule healing. So there can be, as I said, some quick responses to problems, particularly in matters that involve healing. But it could not just be healing in a physical sense. It might be healing in a mental sense or psychological sense as well. So that could all occur. And that would be a good thing. So the planets change signs, there's nothing that's retrograde, and a new beginning is highlighted. And so that's nice. If a delayed dream comes true in February, maybe it results in a new beginning by March. That could happen. Okay, what does it mean in April? In April, we are coming into the spring eclipses. And remember, I said that the spring eclipses are in the same fixed financial signs that they were last year, because all of the eclipses in 2022 were only in Scorpio and Taurus. So it was really about the money in 2022. And in the spring of 2023, that's still exactly where we are. It's all about the money. So on April 21st, there is a solar eclipse at 0 degrees of Taurus. And so the sun just went into Taurus. And there are a lot of planets there. The sun, the new moon, Mercury, and Uranus are all in Taurus. Well, that would look pretty good for a Taurus, particularly since it's a solar eclipse, and solar eclipses always denote new beginnings. But all 4 of those planets are coming into a square with Pluto in Aquarius. Now, that has not happened in so many years, we wouldn't even remember the last time that happened. But these are going to be 5 planets in fixed signs, which are very powerful and strong. Because Pluto is a planet that rules another fixed financial sign, Scorpio. And that is now going to be squaring the planets under the solar eclipse in Taurus in April. And so this is a time when we're really going to have to look over the money, and we're going to have to be very careful. And it is time when people with high debt are probably going to have to face the music. And this is also a time, since there are a lot of good planets in Taurus, that someone, and it could be an organization, it could be a country, it could be a corporation or a coalition, someone wants a lot of money for a future project. Now, Aquarius rules space, and that's always expensive. Or it could just be a new invention that someone's got that could revolutionize the world, as long as somebody was willing to pay for it. But I don't know if anybody is going to be willing to pay for it. But I can tell you that someone's going to want a lot of money in April. And what I think, since Pluto will be squaring all the planets in Taurus, is that old tech, Aquarius rules high tech, old tech, meaning people who've been in the business a very long time, may say no. They may say something is just too expensive. And so they may decide to be a little bit more cautious. So I'm not so sure that's really going to go through, but I'm pretty sure somebody is going to make an appeal for a lot of money in April. Okay, what does it mean in May? Well, in May we have the second eclipse of the spring, and that occurs on May 5th, and it is at 15 degrees of Scorpio. Remember, both of the eclipses are in the fixed financial signs in the spring. And so since the lunar eclipse in Scorpio on May 5th is a full moon, we generally say under a lunar eclipse that one woman goes and another woman comes. And that doesn't have to happen at the same times, but that's generally, you know, there's generally one going out and one coming on board. Not in the same occupations, it doesn't necessarily have to be like that, but it would be the influence of one. It wanes, and the influence of another grows, and it may be not at the same time. So since Scorpio is a fixed financial sign, it can be that a prominent woman steps down at this time, and it can be because she has not handled finances well. She might be in a position where she's in a financial position, but she hasn't handled them well, or else she's ready to move on to something else, and so she steps down. It can also be that a prominent woman steps down because of poor planning. It may be that she's involved with something where the plans haven't worked out, and so she steps down at this time. And then 2 weeks later, we have a new moon, and it is on May 19th at 28 degrees of Taurus. And this is a time in the month of May when I think that somewhere in the world we are going to experience a financial collapse. And I think that that's a good reason to be on the road to recovery, by the way, because we may all have to do that. We may. I'm not so certain that the financial collapse is going to happen in America, but if it does, we would all have to adjust to that and get on that road to recovery. So, you know, sometimes there's ups and downs. And in May, I think there's going to be something going down as far as finances go. And so it wouldn't have to be in America, but America would still be affected. And so it could be another country that experiences a financial collapse. I mean, maybe they really have bad problems, and so they experience a financial collapse. And so I think that's happening sometime in May. And it wouldn't be any later. I mean, it might happen closer to the end of May. But I think it's going to happen by May. Could even be in the process of happening sometime this spring, and nobody actually finds out about it until May. But I do think we're looking at a financial collapse somewhere, and that's a good reason to have to be on the road to recovery. And that kind of recovery would be a financial recovery, and that may affect a lot of us. So I urge you to pay down your debts if you have them. Try to get rid of them, maybe even work an extra job to do that, because you wouldn't suffer so much if you didn't have a lot of debt. So just think about it if you can. What does it mean in June? Oh, in June. In June we're having what I would call a restless month. And that is because on June 18th, there is a new moon at 27 degrees of Gemini. Gemini rules 2 of everything. And so this is a month when some things can be very joyous and happy, and people can be excited because June is the month when kids graduate from school and they can be contemplating summer fun and summer parties, and that's good. And it can be when people graduate from colleges and go on into a great job and so on. So those are good things to look forward to. But the reason why it's a restless month is because that sun and new moon in Gemini are coming up against these 2 planets in Pisces. Remember, in March, Saturn did go into Pisces, and it joined Neptune there. And so any time planets square or oppose Saturn and Neptune, we are looking at trouble. And that is because Saturn is not happy in Pisces. It indicates a withdrawal or some sort of setback or depression or addiction, or in its most extreme form, insanity. And it can represent deprivation. In other words, being confined, because Pisces rules areas of confinement, such as jails, hospitals, prisons, and concentration camps. So we could learn some pretty ugly things. So while there is, that's why it's a restless month, while there is a lot of good and happy news going on, say about graduations or new jobs or summer fun, there's also going to be some real serious setbacks when we have to understand that there could be sad news, or it might be a time when we find out just how many young people are addicted to drugs, and what ages they are. It could be that they're addicted at a younger and younger age. That could go on the whole time Saturn was in Pisces. So people are going to have mental health issues. And in June, you're going to find out about some of those. And that is why we need to be compassionate and help people get on the road to recovery, because that benefits everyone. Okay, what does it mean in July? Well, in July, on July 17th, there is a new moon at 25 degrees of Cancer. And so this is a real turnaround month. And remember, I told you there would be turnarounds. And the reason why it's a turnaround month is because Cancer rules the 4th house of home. It rules the last half of life. It rules endings, which are always done very well. And it also rules residential real estate, and it rules moving. And so there is the possibility in July that if you were planning to make a move, surprise, that move could turn out to be 10 times easier than you would think it could possibly be. It will be a very easy move because July is going to be what I would call, the turnaround is going to involve settling down. You know, sort of like putting down roots. Or it will be a move, one of the easiest moves you would ever make in your life. Surprisingly so. And so it would involve settling down. And that's why I think that besides, you know, in July, 4th of July is America's birthday. That's a nice thing to celebrate too. But it is really going to be a month when we shift our positions, but in a way to help us settle down and be a little bit more comfortable and maybe even live more economically. By then, if there is a financial collapse somewhere in the world, a lot of people could think of ways to band together or live together to save money, which would be great. Okay, what does it mean in August? Wait a minute. Now we come into a time, you know, where there's ups and downs. And the reason why is that August is a completely different kind of month than March was. So 6 months later, along comes August, and instead of, in March, planets changed signs, but there were no retrograde planets then. Everything just zoomed forward in the spring. But by August, on August 16th, there is a new moon at 23 degrees of Leo, and there are 6 retrograde planets by then. So nothing is going to happen very fast in August, and that's too bad, because there's still going to be a lot of money and a lot of fun. It's the summertime, so there could be parties as well. But there'll be a lot of money spent on gambling. That's what Leo rules, and on horse racing, and on sports, and on love affairs, and just having fun. But with 6 retrograde planets, I don't think anybody's going to get too far. So if you were wanting to, say, make a power play in August, if anybody wants to make a power play in August, I would say you're not going to get too far. And you may have the best idea in the world, but there's not going to be enough support for it because there's so many retrograde planets, 6 of them. So what I think you could describe August is, I think that in August, history repeats itself. That something that we've already been through before, or that you might have been through, or that the world has been through, repeats itself in August. So that's what I think. With so many retrograde planets, it's a little bit more likely that something that had been tried before will get tried again. You know, a repeat. And that's why I think history repeats itself. It could be disastrous, like somebody trying to make war, even worse. Or it could just be that arrogant, demanding people decide, ooh, I'll just give this another shot. So they could try, but I don't think they'll succeed. Not with 6 retrograde planets. They could go back to their old ways, but they might be very disappointed on the reaction if they try that. They wouldn't get much reaction. It would be a disappointment if they tried it. So if you're intending to have history repeat itself in August, why don't you think of something new to do instead? I think you'd be more successful trying something new than trying to repeat something old. So you could think about it. Okay, what does it mean in September? Well, in September, we're coming into a time that is another kind of a turnaround. And the reason for that is that on September 15th or 17th, there is, wait a minute. It was July 17th, so in September 16th, there is a new moon at 22 degrees of Virgo. And a Virgo is a very analytical, good problem-solving sign. But the problem is, just like it occurred in March, and as it occurred particularly in June, the Sun and New Moon and Mercury, which are in Virgo at the time, are squaring Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. And so we are seeing that, you know, Virgo rules the healthcare field. And I think there's going to be a boom in mental health facilities and mental health programs to help a lot of people on the road to recovery, whether they're recovering from drug addiction or from thoughts of suicide or being a manic depressive. There's a whole lot of reasons why people cannot be at their best while Saturn is in Pisces. And in September, we can be looking at people who really want to help in the healthcare field. But they're running up against problems that they may not even know. They may not know how big the problem is. And so maybe that's what they've got to do first, is just really look at how big the problem is. Because it might end up that over the next 2.5 to 3 years while Saturn is in Pisces, we do figure out how to solve some of these big problems. But you'd have to know how big the problem was first before you could apply the right measures and be successful. And so I think that's what we're doing. We're going to have to be really looking at problems. And you could say, oh, well, who wants to look at problems? You know, it's the start of school again in September. And it can be football season and, you know, lots of things going on. But there can also be sadness. And there can be people who are hiding their feelings. And there can be quite a bit of reaction against things that we've always taken for granted, like against going to school. Maybe some people are not so happy about doing that anymore. Or maybe we've lost them. You know, the pandemic shut the schools down. That was a major mistake. And we have lost people because of that. And they have lost their skill levels. They haven't made up. Even if they had talent, they didn't have teaching. So they didn't advance. So do you see, there's all kinds of reasons to be on the road to recovery in 2023. Some of the problems are not problems that you or I have caused, but they're the problems that we live with in our society. And somebody's got to help out. So even if we're not in the recovery mode, we can be helping somebody else who is, and maybe help them get over a time of trouble. Because if one person is in trouble, it is going to affect other people too. So sometimes we just have to, you know, be a good neighbor, help each other out. Okay, what does it mean in October? In October, we come into the fall eclipses, and they're both in the month of October. So on October 14th, there is a new moon at 21 degrees of Libra. And so this is a time when we're getting close to the end of the year. And an unusual thing happens in the last 3 months of the year, which is October, November, and December. And it is that all 3 new moons in the last quarter of the year are all at the same degree, the 21st degree. The reason why that's important is because 21 is a Jupiter number. I mean, if you ever want to really succeed at something, try to do it on the 21st of the month. Because that is a lucky day, since it is a Jupiter number. And so on October 14th, there is a solar eclipse at 21 degrees of Libra. And so, as we're nearing the end of the year, it would be nice if we were nearing, you know, if we were on the road to recovery this year, it would be nice if we were getting pretty close to the end of that. And some people might be by the fall. And the reason why is, let's just use a hypothetical example. For instance, if you were a person who was head of a country that had been invaded, and you were the smaller country, and nobody in the world thought that you were going to win a fight against a big enemy, but you threw everything you had at that enemy. Well, since Libra rules peace, and it rules partnership, and it rules treaties, if you, by some wonderful, many opportunities and a great deal of help, looked as if you were winning that war by October under this solar eclipse, it might be an ideal time to sign a peace treaty. And that could happen somewhere. And in your own life, just in your own circle, this would be an absolutely excellent time to form a new partnership. And that is because it would be, it's on the 21st of the month, it would be favored to start as a new partnership, but it would be the kind of partnership that would expand. Jupiter is a planet of expansion, and so that's what the number 21 represents, expansion. And so this is a time when there can be a peace and a new partnership, not the renewal of an old partnership, but a new partnership could occur. Or there can just simply be some diplomatic moves that are very successful at this time, which would be fine. And then, 2 weeks later, on October 28th, there is a full moon lunar eclipse, and that is at Taurus, and it is at 5 degrees of Taurus. And so that's the 4th eclipse in Taurus in 2 years. So once again, we can talk about peace and partnership and, getting along better with other people, but the idea still seems to be about money. And, because you need that to live too. And so this is a time when, by late October, since it's a lunar eclipse, that one woman goes and another woman comes. But I think the way that you could describe that is one in, one out. And by that I mean that one woman is, she's sort of escorted out. And the reason why is either she has not done her job well, or it can be that she's retiring, or it can be that whatever she was doing, it's maybe not the way the company is headed anymore. Do you know what I mean? It might be that if she wanted to get a new job, she probably could, but the old job is not required anymore. So that woman steps aside. Whereas there could be another woman in the same organization that holds her ground, and she stays where she is. Maybe she's the one that was doing all the work anyway. And so one in, which is the one who'd always been working, one out, the one who didn't really live up to expectations. And so that could be happening. And somebody would want a lot of money one way or another, but I'm not so sure that they would get the money. People who want a lot of money this year are, I think, doing some wishful thinking. And not because people don't feel generous, but simply because there are so many other people in need, that really need help. And there won't be enough money to go around. Because even if there was a little country in some other hemisphere that experiences a financial collapse, it is going to have a backlash all the way around the world. So it actually might not be a little country, it might be a bigger country. But whatever's happening there, I think there is a financial collapse in the spring. So when the lunar eclipse hits in Taurus on October 28th, people will have their mind on cutting expenses, not expanding expenses. And so they're going to want their best value for their dollar. So the one that's been doing their work the whole time, they stay. They're holding their ground. The one who maybe had been sort of sliding by and had not lived up to expectations, that one is going. And even if that woman has all kinds of great reasons for doing that, I think that since there isn't enough money to go around, she will be out. Okay, what does it mean in November? Well, in November, on November 13th, there is a new moon at 21 degrees of Scorpio. And Scorpio rules justice, and it's a healing water sign. And this is a month when I think you really are getting to the end of that road of recovery. You're going to be doing real well in November if you stick to something this year, if you even just go for a dream. Even with Saturn in the sign of dreams, Pisces, remember Neptune is there as well, and it's the ruler of the sign. So a dream could really be coming true by November. And the reason why is that there are 5 planets in the healing water signs at that time under the new moon in November. And that means that the sun, moon, and I think there's 4 planets in Scorpio. So there's 4 planets in Scorpio, and they are all trining the 2 in Pisces. So they're trining Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. And so any time that Saturn is trining other planets, that's helping them. That's lending them support. Saturn is a planet of endurance and strength and, above all, experience. And so this is simply a time when justice will be done in a fair way. It'll be very fair, but it probably will be justice. And so this may allude to the solar eclipse in Libra that occurred in October, where there could be a peace treaty. Somebody who might have been an absolute underdog could somehow have won against a tyrant. And so in November, under the November new moon in on November 13th in Scorpio, you could describe this as a period of time that is typified by the phrase, "To the victor go the spoils." And so money pours in. It might be to a beleaguered leader and a country that has been absolutely devastated, but the reparations are there. To the victor go the spoils. And since justice will be done in a fair way, things are going to turn out pretty well in November, particularly for people who have kept a dream alive. And where would that dream be coming from? Straight from their heart. So if you have a dream that you've kept in your heart for a long time, it just might come true, certainly on your road to recovery. And it could come true in July. It could come true in November. And that's when I think a lot of people will complete their journey on the road to recovery. I think they will complete it in November. Things will work out well. So what does it mean in December? Ooh, in December, on December 12th, there is a new moon at 21 degrees of Sagittarius. And so this is a time, once again, remember I said it's a year of ups and downs. Well, if November is up, December could be a little down. Why is that? Because the sun, new moon, and Mars, which will be in Sagittarius under that new moon on December 12th, are all squaring, and Mars is a malefic planet, are all squaring Saturn, another malefic planet, and Neptune in Pisces. And so I think that we are going to be somewhat dismayed in November. And one thing that we can be disappointed or dismayed about is that somebody is not what they have been pretending to be. That somewhere around there's really a pretty clever imposter. And they could be discovered, or they could get away with something pretty big in December. And at the same time, by the end of December, I think we are going to be appalled by the fact that an enemy has been hiding in plain sight. And it's in our plain sight. I mean, it's somebody who really was an enemy and is not somebody that we ever thought would be. But I think an enemy is hiding in plain sight by the end of December. So that could be a little disappointing. But once again, that's why it's pretty good to be on the road to recovery this year, because I think we're all going to have to be on that road. And that's because of the ups and downs. And that's because we probably are going to have to band together a little bit more and help those that are having trouble. And some of them could be young people. And some of them could even be in our own families. Or they could be our neighbors. And we don't have to point fingers of accusations at people. What we need to do is help them be on the road to recovery. Because that way we'd all be happier. So this is a time when this is a year when you could make a dream come true, particularly February. A delayed dream does come true in February. And by November, you know, it's going to be pretty good. July is good too. But watch out for May. I think there will be a financial collapse somewhere. I just hope it isn't around us. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, you can read our blog and see the show on our website, starborninstitute.org. And if you'd like to subscribe to my Karen Campbell YouTube channel, I'd be happy to send you the show every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And I hope you tell your friends too. And I'm sorry this got to be a little bit long, but it's a very complex year. So just try to do your best, and try to be around other people that are doing their best too. That way you'll all succeed. All right, thanks so much. I'll see you next week. Bye.